Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Jedok Geom series, where we explore the Admiral's Sword, a Korean Joseon Dynasty sword form. So in today's episode, we'll be talking about Daejuk Chookkumse, which is the drawing posture upon meeting an enemy. It's basically the starting posture, and this is my interpretation of it. As always, if you're new to the form, then please practice safely using a bokken. Now, Daejuk Chookkumse is the start of the form, and it's also the starting point that you're supposed to adopt when encountering conflict. And it looks like this. Now in Korea, they have a heavy focus on the heel of the right foot being in line with the left foot, feet shoulder width apart, both facing forward, left hand on the hip. And personally, I think that that's a load of rubbish. I think that it doesn't affect the form at all, and it's only done that way for aesthetic purposes, and also because the form in Muyeodo Tongji is drawn like this. And it's probably drawn like this because it's very hard to draw a character side on with their feet in line and still give them two legs. Now at best, I think Admiral Li Rusong wouldn't have cared for such a small detail. His form is a very practical form, and I don't think he would have cared for such a minor detail if it didn't affect anything. But at worst, I think it might actually be detrimental to the form. Because you step forward into a cut using this, then if your right foot is in front and you're stepping forward with the right foot, you actually lose a lot of power. And so having the right foot either in line or further back is how I would practice it. Because then, like the Hema Wrath stance, then stepping forward into the cut, you get more body mass transfer and you get a lot more power with that. Now, why is this the starting point? Usually people don't stand like this when they start conflict. They would usually stand either in mid-guard or long point like this. And it seems like a much more guarded pose than Daejuk Chookkumse like this. Now I think Daejuk Chookkumse is a reflection of Admiral Li Rusong's personality. Admiral Li Rusong didn't actually like conflict, and he preferred to resolve fights with diplomacy where possible. And we see this in the Battle of Seoul in 1593. Then he used strategy and diplomacy to give the Japanese a way out to reduce the conflict and still to take back the city. He could have won it with brute force, but he realized that many lives would be lost if he fought it, but on both sides, including his own, so he tried to talk them down. Now if we have a look at the mid-guard with the sword in your face, then that's a conflict escalator. No one is going to want to talk to you and have you talk them down when your sword is pointed in their face like that. Whereas if we have a look at Daejuk Chookkumse, then here the sword is out of the way and you can talk openly. You can actually try and resolve the conflict without fighting. Now people say, well, if you look at this, then it's a very open posture. You don't have much defense, and you're open, you're asking to be stabbed in the stomach. So I think we should have a look at what comes next from Daejuk Chookkumse. So in the Korean form, it's almost always performed as a one-handed horizontal swing to the eye level, and it's very half-assed in my opinion. There's no mass transfer, it's not a powerful cut, and there's also no reason for it to be one-handed. In Muyeodo Tongji, then it just says attack with the right leg and right hand, which they say for all of their cuts. So I think that it should actually be a two-handed cut. And rather than ask what next, we should ask what can come next. So with regards to footwork, you can either step forward or back into right long stance, and you can also step forward and back into left long stance from this stance. And let's say that we go into right long stance. What can we do? You can either do a vertical cut, you can do a downwards cut to the left. I personally don't like the horizontal cut, but it is possible to do a horizontal cut to the left. And you can also do a rising cut to the left. And the rising cut to the left is a little bit tricky because people don't expect it coming from that position. Now let's say that your opponent has their guard on their left hand side, so all of your options cutting from the right are blocked off. Well, you can still sweep it past your head and do a downwards cut to the right in left long stance. Now that's offense covered. What about defense? Let's say that your opponent attacks first. What can you do? Well, from Daejuk Chookkumse, then you can step into left or right long stance, and you can do both mid guards and you can do forward high guards quite easily, and that way then you can protect yourself. So as you can see, Daejuk Chookkumse looks very unassuming, but it actually gives you a lot of options, and I think it's a very wise guard to take, because long point may give you the option of offense and defense, and long point in mid guard, but Daejuk Chookkumse also gives you the option to de-escalate it using a talking approach and to reduce needless lives being lost and needless injuries from combat. So that's it for today. I hope you liked talking about Daejuk Chookkumse, and if you haven't seen down below, then we have a link to my document where I've written up my interpretation, as well as transcribed the Korean form in English in a lot more detail than you'll find in English translations of Tongji. So please give this video a like and a subscribe. The document is completely free, and please do share it with your friends, just to make the English version of this form more accessible. And with that, I'll see you on the next episode.